Hello, hello. Good evening from chilly Boston, Massachusetts. I am Becky Deusser. I'm the Executive Director of the International OCD Foundation, and I am joined here by one of our IOCDF advocates, Kira Chung. Hi, Kira.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. It's so great to be on with you. We're both extremely excited to share with you some details about our new 5-year strategic plan. And just wanted to share a few things before we start to do that. First, just to remind folks, I started in this role about a year ago, and almost exactly a year ago, we had our first live stream that was a state of the state town hall about the IOCDF. And at that time, I was really just learning and getting up to speed, and shared that I felt that the organization I was walking into and the community I was just starting to learn about felt so strong and so vibrant. And now, having been on board for about a year, I just can't emphasize enough how thrilled I am to be so warmly received into this community and to learn so much about OCD and the related disorders and all the people that make up the fabric of our community. And also, most importantly, in the subject for tonight, is to start to think about what our future will look like and how we can really start to advance our mission and our vision so we can reach many millions more people who are affected by OCD. So I do want to turn it over to Kira and ask Kira to introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. I am coming to you live from the not so chilly Houston, Texas, unfortunately, where I'm missing the cold, but that might just be a hot take. I am a sophomore at Rice University studying neuroscience and cognitive science, and I am an IOCDF advocate, and I also run my own organization called Common Ground that provides support to those affected by OCD. And I also have lived experience, so very passionate about this community and love everyone. And I will pass it over to, I guess, while I'm kind of talking, everybody else can pop in the chat where you guys are joining from. If it's nice and chilly there, I will be very much so jealous.
Thanks, Kira. I have to say, too, it's such a pleasure to get to know you just a bit. And I'm so grateful for you joining us tonight and helping facilitate our conversation. So I'll just jump in. Before I start talking about the strategy, I just want to share a couple of highlights about what a successful and exciting year we had in 2024. Just a couple of highlights I'm going to share with you. One is that we supported over 11 million people with life-saving resources on community platforms and other programming and things that we host. We celebrated 30 years of research, which is so exciting. And we've awarded over 150 grants totaling more than $11 million, which is something we're all very proud of and hope to build upon. We had some records broke this year. A couple of things. One is we had over 6,000 attendees over 8 conferences that we hosted in 2024. And we educated 900 people through our training programs. We also had a record 42 OCD walks worldwide with more than 5,500 participants. And again, that's another record. Also just want to give a shout out to more than 4,000 volunteers and advocates who have helped inform and advance our work. And we have 3 new affiliates who are now in our community in Delaware, Nevada, and Tennessee. And we're also on track to grow OCD Midwest. So stay tuned for more information there. And I just wanted to note a couple other firsts. Last year, we hosted our first online BDD conference, Body Dysmorphic Disorder, with nearly 500 attendees. We're going to be bringing that again in 2025. We hosted our first international pediatric training program called the BTTI. And then we also had 3 affiliates host a summer camp program, which is specifically focusing on kids. And that's another theme that we're going to be talking more about over the course of this hour. Also, we launched our first ever hybrid track at the annual conference. And I mentioned that last because I would never miss a chance to plug our upcoming annual OCD conference. Our 30th annual conference is going to be held in Chicago this summer in July, on July 11th. Registration opens at the end of March. This year, we're going to build on the hybrid track that was so successful last year. We had almost 700 people participate on the hybrid level. We're going to have 7 of our tracks hybrid now at the conference, and we're really hoping that's going to increase engagement internationally and really help create more access for people who aren't able to travel. So please stay tuned for more information about that. As I mentioned, we've got our online BDD conference is coming back, and that's going to be on May 31st. And on May 17th is the Boston OCD Walk, which really kicks off the season of OCD Walks for 2025. So lots of exciting things ahead, and couldn't be more thrilled to share kind of the biggest thing I'm excited about for this year, which is our new 5-year strategy. Many of you joining us probably participated in some listening sessions that we held back in May. We went through a really thorough process for listening, focusing on engagement, really trying to understand what's important to the community and also what gaps might exist in the programs and all the resources that IOCDF offers today and where we want to go in the next 5 years and beyond. The thing that's exciting and important about strategy in general is, one, I think it brings clarity. It helps all of us understand a little bit better where are we going, what's our direction, and try to help make sure that we all have those North Stars so that when all the things going on come at us, all the decisions that we have to make, all the great ideas that people have inside the staff and beyond, outside of the staff with our whole community, we just have some more direction on how to navigate those things so that we can stay true to where we want to go over the next 5 years. I also just really want to thank our staff. Many of you know, many of our, thanks, Kara, got about 20 people on staff now. We've grown significantly over the past few years, and so many people on the team helped shape this plan. And everyone really has helped pull the plan together. And so proud of everyone. And I'm so grateful to be working with you all day in, day out as we advance our mission. I also want to thank our board of directors. Some of them may be on tonight. I can't see all the participants. So if you're there, hello and thank you. The board really made a bold choice a couple of years ago to start to focus on having a strategy and think of ways that we can grow our reach. The IOCDF is an amazing organization. We help thousands and thousands of people every year. Millions of people, as I said earlier, access our resources. But there's still so many people that we're looking to reach. Some 230 million people in the world have OCD, and many more impacted by those people or affected by OCD in other ways, not to mention related disorders like BDD and hoarding disorder. And while we've been doing a great job, there's such a huge opportunity to reach so many more people and really raise awareness and help fulfill our mission in a more meaningful way. So I want to share a couple of thoughts about the strategy, and thank you all again for participating tonight, and really want to make sure we have time to turn it over to Kira, who's going to ask some great questions and then help facilitate some other questions as well. Before we jump in, I just want to say, first and foremost, all of our work has to be in service of our mission and our vision. And I'm going to ask Rachel to put that up. Thank you. Just as a reminder, I won't read it all because you all can read faster than I can talk. But our mission is really to ensure that no one who's affected by OCD is alone, and that everyone has the opportunity to find effective treatment. And our vision is really that we want to realize that there's immediate access to effective treatment and support. I really want to emphasize the immediate part of that because that's where we see so many challenges in our current state today. And I think so many opportunities on what we can do as an organization to help change that. Thanks, Rachel. So I want to share a couple of philosophical things that have come out in this process that might sound new and may not. First is that while we have a mission, we have a vision, we're doing a great job, we really need to have more focus if we're going to see transformational change. It's just not possible for one organization to do it all. And I like to say, we can't do it all, but we can still do a lot. And I think that the more focused we are on the areas where we can have an impact, the more successful we're going to be and reach more people. We've had to think really hard about where IOCDF sits in our ecosystem. That's a real growing ecosystem worldwide. And it's not just focused on the US. There's so many more organizations throughout the world who are focused on this disorder. and so many opportunities for us in a lot of ways. We sit in the middle of that ecosystem. But we, like I was saying, we can't do it all. And we have to think about where can IOCDF serve as a lead and do things directly that can affect change in the areas that we want to. But also, what are ways where we can be enablers and we can help support other organizations or other people in the ecosystem that are doing great things, like advancing training, for example, where we can do training ourselves, but we should also be thinking about how we can support other organizations that are doing effective training as well. And then the third thing I mentioned briefly is just recognizing that we're a part of a big ecosystem. And it's not just OCD specific. You know, there's obviously a lot of organizations that touch on OCD related disorders, comorbid or disorders, and just mental health generally. And thinking about how can we work together to maybe dust off old partnerships that we used to have and maybe drifted away for at times. And look for opportunities for new partners so that we can all start to amplify our work when we're really looking to raise attention about a lot of similar issues. The other thing I want to mention is that we worked hard to develop some goals that we hope to achieve over the next 5 years that I'll share with you in a moment. And it's important to note that because these goals are aspirational and they're really bold. I think they're achievable goals. But again, I think it's important for us to keep our eyes sighted on the things that we're trying to change and advance at kind of that macro level when we will inevitably get caught up in every single thing going on week after week, month after month, year by year. Before I go on, Kira, do you have any questions just about what I shared before I jump into the plan itself?
No, I do want to take a quick moment though to hype up Becky and all of the IOCDF. They're really doing such amazing work. Like I was on a few of the listening sessions to kind of like brainstorm back in the spring, and I'm so excited to see how the kind of like Vision 2030 has come from just a few like people from the community's ideas to this full-fledged plan, and I'm super excited to see like what it holds for the following years. And I have a few more questions for Becky and I guess the community and things that the community might want to know about the new vision. But yeah, definitely super, super exciting.
Thanks, Kara. I'm excited too. And I hope everyone tuning in is as well. So Rachel, I'm going to ask you if you can just share that one graphic. Thanks. So this is a graphic that just helps show the high level version of what our strategy is all about. And I'll just try to explain it, not for too long, because I want to make sure we have time to get to your questions. But I just want to note a couple of things. So in the middle, those 3 pieces of the circle, 3 pieces of the pie, those are the areas where we believe we can have the most impact. And it's also areas where we learned from many of you in the community that there are some gaps that we still want to address. So one of the first one is increasing awareness in community. What that really means is helping not just increase awareness about IOCDF or OCD, but increasing correct understanding about OCD and helping combat stigma and misinformation. And the community piece is really thinking about, and it's something we heard so clearly in the listening sessions, that while we have a lot of volunteer opportunities, SIGs, different spaces and places for people to interact, there's such a hunger and desire for more of that. And so we're really thinking through strategies and ways that we can have more ways for people to find community themselves, have more connection with people, whether it's on the lived experience side, whether it's clinicians wanting to share their experiences with one another on the resource side and the research side and beyond. So our goal in this area is to double the percentage of public recognition of OCD. And there are some studies out there that that aren't very big that we hope to replicate over the next 5 years, where there's about a 33% understanding of OCD in the US. So it is limited. We have to start somewhere. So that's where we're going to start. And so our goal is to get that number closer to 70% over the next 5 years. We can talk more about some of the ways we hope to do that. Expanding access to effective treatment While all of these areas are important, I would say if we had to pick one North Star, this is the most important thing that we want to focus on over the next 5 years. Anyone tuning in know this very well. There just simply aren't enough ways to access effective treatment right now throughout the world. We have amazing clinicians and researchers in our community who are very good at treating people with OCD. There just simply are not enough of them. There's not enough training available for people who do treat people with OCD and other disorders to really understand how complicated it is and what the specific frontline treatments are to be effective. And there's just also a lot of broader barriers to care. A lot of therapists don't accept insurance. The cost of getting therapy is extremely high in the US and in other parts of the world. There's also quite a bit of stigma still related to mental health in general, and especially around OCD and the related disorders. It's not easy for a lot of people to even get into that first step of accessing care with a therapist who understands their disorder and how to treat it. We want to increase this number of people getting effective care. We worked really hard to try to know what the current state of people are, even within the US, who are currently getting what we would call effective treatment for OCD. That data doesn't really exist in a meaningful way. So one of the things we're going to do over the next 5 years is study that question. In 2025, we're going to publish a white paper that's going to try to address that question so that we can learn what our baseline is and what our opportunities are to grow the number of people. And I hope in the future that we can expand learning about that question specifically for kids, and then also specifically on an international basis. But like I said earlier, we have to start somewhere, and that's how we're starting out getting to that question. And the third area is focused on advancing research. And you all know that we have research grant programs. Like I said earlier, we've awarded over $11 million in research grants. However, there's still a lot we don't know and understand about OCD and for better treatments or how to enhance existing good treatments, and just trying to continue to learn more and more about that and the related disorders. Interestingly, in this journey, what we've learned, and Rachel, I'm going to ask you to flip to that other graphic for a minute. Thanks. OCD receives dramatically less funding for research than many other disorders with similar prevalence rates. And the numbers really speak for themselves on this chart. This is just focused on the NIH in the US, but we think this is true kind of across the global space as well. There are a lot of reasons why that is. It is not because OCD isn't common, and it's not because OCD is not important and is worthy of study. It is because, in part, we haven't necessarily done enough advocacy and focus at the government level, pointing this out to people who make decisions about research funding. And I think also just general awareness in the public about OCD versus some of these other areas. So, Rachel, if you don't mind flipping back. Thank you again. So with these areas of focus, what I would say probably aren't shockingly different from the way we've talked about our work for the most part over the years. What's different is sort of this outer circle, these interlocking lines that says partnerships, policy, and pediatrics. And I really want to jump into those because these are the areas of focus that I think are going to be different and build on the work that we were already doing. So I'll start with policy, which is, for those of you who know my background, is an area that I have a lot of expertise in professionally. And I also think it's an area where the IOCDF has done some work around public policy and trying to influence decisions, governmental decisions in the past. But we haven't necessarily had a proactive approach and tried to build our own platform and have a strategy around ourselves representing our community and all the different ways that we represent the OCD community to talk about this very important topic and point out things like we don't have enough funding for research. Awareness about OCD is poor. We're critically low on the number of clinicians who are appropriately trained to give effective treatment to people. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to transform that over the next 5 years. So we'll be working to build our capabilities there. And some of the things we're hoping to do is to create, get some advice from some outside experts who are impacted either directly by OCD with lived experience or in some other way, and start to think about ways where we can talk about OCD more publicly. With that, I think there's just this other thinking around, we need to own our role as the leaders in this space. We're the biggest nonprofit focused on OCD and the related disorders. We have a vast resource with our scientific and clinical advisory board, thousands and thousands of volunteers with lived experience, whether they're advocates like Kira or serving in other ways, a really committed board of directors. And we just have a lot going for us and a lot of expertise that I don't know that we always fully own and kind of lean into and try to lead the way. And I'd really like to see that change. And I think this strategy is going to allow us to do that a bit more. Next, I just want to talk about pediatrics, which is really kids and families. We heard this also quite a bit in our listening sessions that while we do have some supports and resources for kids and parents and other caregivers and the whole family unit, we simply don't have enough. And we're really missing some opportunities to help people who have OCD so much earlier in their life that could really set them up with those earlier interventions to just have more opportunities to thrive. Again, many of you tuning in tonight, I'm sure have heard stories, as I have, of so many people who weren't diagnosed with OCD well into their adulthood, sometimes even much older, and just struggled needlessly for so many years when there's like really clear treatment that works for many, many people. So we really want to try to start to understand that better and address that with more programs and resources and more community. And third and last, I'll just highlight that we also really want to focus more on partnerships. And partnerships can mean a lot of things. But generally speaking, as I was saying earlier, there's a huge ecosystem of organizations throughout the world that are focused either on OCD itself or just adjacent topics, adjacent disorders within the mental health space, and even beyond mental health, where we can all be working together more to amplify our message. A lot of us have common goals. A lot of us are trying to raise awareness. A lot of us are trying to eliminate stigma. A lot of us would like to see more research dollars coming into this space. And again, first and foremost, many, many organizations in the space agree that there simply isn't adequate access to care. And these are things I think we can find more partners to work on together, both, again, within the US and internationally. And we've got a plan to address that. So I'm going to take a deep breath and turn it over to Kira and see, Kira, what questions come to mind as you're hearing more about the strategy?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I have at least one or more questions on every single part of, I guess, that cute little graph. I guess I can kind of start off on, I guess, where you left off. So there's, as a lot of people in the OCD community know, there's a well-documented shortage of trained OCD specialists. And what's something that's really interesting about the Vision 2030, I just want to hear you kind of like explain, and I think it's really great for the community to hear, what steps is like the IOCDF taking to increase the number of clinicians who are properly trained in evidence-based treatment, and emphasis on properly trained and evidence-based treatment, because just because they are mental health professionals doesn't mean that they necessarily know about OCD. And it's really frustrating when you have to explain your disorder to somebody else. I can share like a quick little.
Yeah, sure. I was hoping you could share that's your experience, your unfortunate experience that you had.
Definitely. So I can kind of not laugh about it now, but I'm glad that as an advocate, I was equipped with the tools that I could to advocate for myself and also try to highlight the reality of living with OCD. But when I switched over from my child psychiatrist to my adult psychiatrist, the first meeting I had with her, I was kind of hoping to get a refill of the meds that have been working for me, which is Prozac. I like to be transparent about that. And she was just like, you know what? No, I know it's going to fix all your problems. And then she's like, fish oil. And I'm like, I I don't know about that. And then she's like, well, I think you might like your thoughts, because have you ever just thought about not thinking about them? And I'm like, there's actually no way. But that's like the sad reality of living with OCD, is so many people don't realize that it's not a choice that you make. And it's not just like the fun quirks that you see on television and things like that. Thankfully, I have now gotten access to a better psychiatrist, and I am very blessed in that. But I know that just really highlights the fact that there aren't enough people out there that know, and having that kind of experience can really put a damper on people's accessibility and willingness to get treatment, because it's such a vulnerable thing. And then having it kind of like downgraded and like explained to you in that degrading kind of way is really, really difficult. So yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that story, Kara. Thank you so much. And while it's so shocking, it is somewhat funny. I mean, it is really so poignant of how much work we still have to do in so many ways. And I think someone who is brilliant and educated and motivated and, like you said, trained to be an advocate, having trouble navigating our system, it just begs a question of like so many other people who don't have all those opportunities to navigate the system. And what are we going to do to have their back, and how we're going to start to change that. So I can answer your question a bit about training. It's a very deep topic, so I'll try to keep it
definitely super sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, these are all warrants of like, we could have more live streams on all of these topics, and that would be really fun to do possibly. So a few things. So the way we're thinking about training is that we do provide training through a training institute. Most folks are aware of our BTTIs. They're the most popular. We trained almost 1,000 clinicians last year through the entire training institute.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. So, however, when we started to crunch some numbers, training 900 clinicians a year isn't going to get us very far. We calculate, it's going to take like 300 years to get to a critical mass, right? So we're trying to think about training on a continuum of learning, where we think there's a lot of opportunities at the beginning of the continuum, which we would call foundational, which would be not just mental health professionals, but also other medical professionals like pediatricians, primary care physicians, maybe school professionals who could benefit from learning just some foundational information about OCD, and also knowing that there's ways to diagnose it. And if they themselves can't do it, how to get linked up with a professional who is able to appropriately diagnose someone. And then again, just sharing the fact that there are a lot of great evidence-based treatments to help address that. So we're spending time in 2025 starting to focus on that foundational end. We're developing a new program called OCD Basics that we actually filmed 2 weeks ago in Boston. It was made possible by funding from Jack MHA in Jacksonville, Florida, through Kim Vincenti. Kim, if you're on, thank you so much for that gift.
Love her. Love her the most.
She's wonderful. I agree. And so that's really a starting out point where we're going to try to start targeting clinicians who might not have any familiarity with OCD and learn more. Also, late last year, we launched a new webinar platform where we're going to have on-demand training on lots of different topics related to OCD and related disorders. That's now live and available. So anyone tuning in, if you're interested to learn more, you can log in and take a course. Thanks, Rachel. And it's not expensive. And we hope the goal is to really start to raise awareness about it so that more and more people can start to get exposed to learning more about OCD. So those are a few things on that end. Then we've got that BTTI level where it starts to introduce more specific concepts on treating people with OCD. But we've had a lot of success with that program. There has been a waiting list in years past. We've got that waiting list down to 12 months, which is still long, but it's a lot shorter than it used to be. And every year we've added more and more BTTI sessions. So this year we're going to have 13 sessions over the course of the year, some virtual and some in person, in different parts of the world and different parts of the US. Going further on that spectrum, though, we have other offerings like online consultation groups where clinicians can ask questions of one another and better understand best practices. And then we also have the advanced forum, which is really getting towards more for clinicians who are mastering treating OCD, but continuing to want to learn and learn more about best practice. So those are offerings that we have today or we're looking to do in kind of the near future. Other things we're looking to do is also build on some pilot programs that we had for trainings in other countries. So recently we've had pilots in Singapore, Mexico, and China to bring training programs there. And I just want to give a shout out to Alec Pollard and the other members of our SCB training committee that have really helped push along that work, in addition to folks on our staff helping. We'd really like to keep building upon that and think about ways that we can train trainers so that they're able to continue to train clinicians in their home country with all that awareness about the specific cultural competencies or barriers to care and continue to bring that forward. Also, there's a lot of work to do around advocacy. Like I said earlier, there's so many barriers to accessing care. Training more clinicians is a really clear-cut way to start to address that. But there's lots of other ways that we can try to help raise awareness about the fact that there just simply aren't enough clinicians to treat mental illness generally, not to mention OCD and the related disorders. Also, I want to mention around training that we want to continue to think about opportunities where we can up the bar and increase the level of training that clinicians are getting. And we're thinking about ways like, can we partner with other training programs that are also very good? You know, we're not the only game in town, even though we're very proud of our training institute. And are there ways we can help enable more training in the ecosystem throughout the world besides us doing those trainings ourselves? And just one more thing, you know, I know it's not like a lot of really specific things that we can do in 1 year. And I just want to emphasize again that, you know, a strategic plan is a roadmap. It doesn't include everything we want to do or everything we can do. And we know that training can be so transformational to increase access to care. And we're just starting a multi-year journey. So we'll continue to be talking about training and testing out new things.
Definitely. Yes, and something super interesting that you pointed out, not only is it amazing that you guys are like expanding training, but also in like so many different countries. Something that's really important I have heard from the community is like more emphasis on putting the international in the International OCD Foundation. And I really love seeing like what Vision 2030, I guess, sets out for that. So I'm super excited. On to my next question. This kind of also is related. Many people struggle with OCD for many years before being properly diagnosed, and oftentimes it can lead to a misdiagnosis that really puts a wrench in the, I guess, recovery process and learning to control your OCD. So how is, besides educating more clinicians, how is like the OCD kind of OCD Foundation planning to, I guess, combat that kind of statistic?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And there's so many different things embedded in the strategy we could talk about. I'll just name a couple. One is back to what I was saying around raising awareness generally and having a correct understanding of what OCD is, and that it is a serious mental health disorder that's nuanced and you know, not funny. And I think there's such a lack of understanding there. A lot of the work that we can do focused on pediatrics, I think can start to make some headway there. I like to say too that while we are going to be focusing more on kids and families, we're not walking away in any way all the resources and programming that we have for adults and young adults. It's simply a way to make sure that we're providing more resources that really don't exist today, you know, for that population of people in our community. And that said, like I was saying earlier, I think reaching people earlier in their lives really gets them on a path where they're so much more likely to thrive and, like, to use your words, control their OCD in a successful way with effective treatment. Some of the other ways to combat that, I think, is thinking about, and this is, again, a place where IOCDF can make such a big impact, is just understanding, again, that OCD doesn't discriminate. It's not geographically bound. It truly affects people throughout the population in every walk of life. And I think there's so much we can do to broaden our reach and think differently about how are we reaching more and more audiences of people who aren't familiar with us. And whether that's by thinking about ways to be more inclusive, ways to invite more people in, thinking more about cultural competencies and stigma that might exist within different cultural communities and different countries. And I think there's a lot more we can do there to keep building community and connection so that people are finding other people they can relate to, whether it's kid to kid, parent to parent, on, and just understand and get meaning from each other in that way as well. And then the third thing fourth thing I guess I'll mention is, again, just thinking more about how we can advance research just to continue to learn more.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Talking a little bit about research, which is also something I'm very interested in. I am a part of Storch Labs, and I really love doing OCD research and research on related disorders. Is there any, I guess, particular realm of research that will receive like more funding, or is it just kind of like all of it? But what is that kind of going to look like?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Kira. So this is another area where I think we have to think about what we can do as IOCDF to help increase research about OCD and related disorders, and also what are ways that we can help support the whole ecosystem so that more research is happening. So some of the things kind of on the latter end on ways where we can be more enablers that we're talking about is thinking of ways that we can provide more foundational assistance. So things like, could we help stand up a brain bank to assist more research for OCD? Could we provide more opportunities so there's more of a patient registry or lived experience registry? So when researchers are looking to study something, there's a vast pool of people who might be willing to participate in research. I think we'll continue to be open about what areas of focus we have on the research grants that we want to give. But we also want to maybe have more offerings on types of research grants. One that we're thinking about developing is something focused on career development, where we're reaching people, clinicians and scientists who are earlier in their career to help set them up for success. And it's similar to the Young Investigator Award that we already provide, but it really helps them unlock and get seed funding. So it will kind of pull them into our ecosystem and continue to study OCD for a long time.
That's amazing. That's so smart. And I love always hearing about the people who have won the Young Investigator of the Year award in the past, and so inspired by all of that. I guess this one might be my favorite, I guess, to talk about and ask questions. As someone who maybe slightly be addicted to social media, there's no use hiding it at this point. Instagram Reels has a chokehold on me, but I really love hearing like how the IOCDF is going to reimagine online content and create more engaging content for the community. And I think what the IOCDF is doing online is already amazing with these live streams and their social media accounts. So I guess, how would you describe how IOCDF is going to improve what is already so amazing?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, like lots we can dig into there. And I encourage people as they get to read the plan to please check that out. But a couple of things. We really want to think about reimagining our whole digital presence and what that means. And again, thinking about what are our windows to the world. And the first thing that comes to mind is our website that has lots of good information, but is in need of a refresh and hasn't really been updated in a meaningful way for about 10 years. So starting later this year, we're going to start work to totally revamp our website, improve access to information, more ways to be interactive, more spaces to build community and connection. And we're very, very excited about that. Our hope is to be able to launch it in 2026. And I think that'll be a good start to get us moving in that direction. Another thing that we're going to focus on is increasing more video, more streaming offerings. I'm sure we have a really robust library of online videos and recorded live streams. We have outstanding advocates and hosts for live stream programs that take place every week, every month. We'd really like to see that program grow. And we want more people from our community, more experts, more voices coming in that all have a role to play in our ecosystem, talking about OCD. And then third, just on the social media side, which it's funny, you're so obsessed and focused on it. And Rachel can tell you, I don't know the difference between a carousel and a reel half the time. So I'm kind of I used to be a young whippersnapper and now I'm not. However, even by saying whippersnapper, I guess that's proven case in point. So we're going to up our game a lot on social media content. I hope that people have been starting to notice, even in the past 6 to 8 months, that we're really trying to get more creative, more bringing in more people, more voices, more approaches, and ways to reach people in exciting and creative ways. We're collaborating more with influencers and advocates. We're trying to develop better capabilities on rapid response. So when things happen in the news related to OCD, we can really jump on it and amplify it and use it as a way to get the word out about OCD and about IOCDF. Just as an example, for football fans out there, Zane Gonzalez, who's a kicker for the Washington Commanders here in the US, was talking publicly about his OCD, and I won't get into the whole story, but we use that as an opportunity to correct some misinformation about OCD that the NFL had put out. And then one of our well-known advocates, Tom Smalley, helped record a short video to talk about these issues. And we got 10,500 views plus on that. And with 72% of those viewers were not IOCDF followers. So for us, that's a huge success. And I hope we can do more and more of that. And I think that's exactly what IOCDF should be doing more of.
Definitely. I saw that. I must admit, as locked in as I am on Instagram, I'm not very well versed in the area of sports, but I do know that was a really big deal, and getting to see how excited everyone was about it is so amazing. And I hope that happens a lot more times in the future.
Great.
I will ask, I guess, one more kind of fun question, and then we can open it up to questions from the chat, because I know I've been seeing a lot of amazing ones come through. So super quick, rapid fire, 3 words. What would you use the 3 words to describe Vision 2030?
I love your question. I'm going to go with bold, intentional, and exciting.
Oh my gosh, those are so good. I love them.
Thank you.
All right, so going on to some questions from the community. Let me see if Rachel wants to put one up. Oh, this is such a good question. David from New Hampshire asks about what is the role of state affiliates in the strategic plan?
Yeah. Hi, David. Great question. Thanks for asking it. Our affiliates are going to play, and our global partners and advocates and all the other volunteers that we have are going to play a vital role in the strategic plan. With affiliates specifically, I can think of a couple of examples. One is continuing with events like the walks, and we're looking for more ways to help have more walks and support the affiliates that do so much hard work to pull off a lot of successful walks. But that's really essential for raising awareness and also for fundraising. So we'd like to see that to continue. Second is, some of you may be familiar with a program that we relaunched this fall called Anxiety in the Classroom. And that's really a toolkit developed for school professionals to learn more about OCD and help understand better how to get get children to appropriate resources. And we've heard of some really great success stories with affiliates from around the country where they're having a lot of success talking with their local schools, school committees, and getting a lot of traction and interest in anxiety in the classroom. So I think that's an area where we'd like to expand that and ask more of our affiliates to help with that. And then third is going to be around public policy advocacy. We're starting out somewhat small. We don't have staff dedicated to policy just yet. I hope to see that grow in the next few years. But I think we'll have more opportunities to ask affiliates to reach out to governmental decision makers at the local level, state level. Many state governments have mental health awareness days. We could have OCD awareness days during OCD Awareness Week, and just try to educate and raise awareness about OCD as a starting out point. And then as we get more sophisticated, I hope we can actually start to focus on maybe there's legislation and changes that we can advocate for as well. And again, I'd like to also think about that on the global and international stage too, where we have a lot of global partners that can help with similar things. Great question.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm so excited. And I'm so glad that you brought up anxiety in the classroom too. That's such an amazing resource. I got to help out with that, I think a year or so ago now. But I love seeing like the new updates that they come up with. All right, another question. This one is from Amy, and she said that she was a part of one of the listening sessions, and she was asking about a minimum standard that one has to meet to be an OCD specialist.
Idea. Thanks. Yeah, Amy, great question. It's definitely came up very loud and clear in the listening sessions. And so we don't have immediate plans ourselves and don't think we actually have empowered to have minimum standards. But what we're hoping to do is, as we're continuing to always want to up our game and make sure that we're offering excellent training opportunities, we are collaborating with other organizations internationally. There's work being done in Canada that's focusing on professional standards for training programs. That someone on our team, Dr. San Saxena, that many of you know, is participating in that work to see if that's something that we can support and help amplify when it's ready. I think it's a question of what's our role in the ecosystem to help support effective training for clinicians. And there's lots of ways we can start to get at that. So that's where we are today. And I think it's a great question. And as we continue to evolve our thinking and grow our strategy around training, this is definitely going to continue to be at the center of that.
Definitely. That sounds so amazing. All right. And I encourage everyone, if they have any more questions, feel free to put them in. You know me, though, I can always yap and fill the space. So I have a few more questions prepared. What else? Oh, okay. So what is like the biggest, I guess, inspiration behind this new strategic plan? Like what made IOCDF say, you know what, we're already doing amazing work and more needs to kind of happen? Because I think that that's so amazing that you're already paving such a new way, but also setting so many interesting new goals.
Yeah, that's such a good question, Kira. So, many of you may know IOCDF's been around for almost 40 years, and it started out as a very small organization of clinicians and researchers focused on OCD, literally sitting around a kitchen table with people with lived experience that they were treating and talking about ways that they could advocate and raise awareness about OCD. And I think that's really important to keep that core in what we do. And just like you always benefit from understanding where you came from as you're moving forward into new chapters. And so I think the inspiration, it really, like I mentioned kind of at the top of the hour, our board of directors made a choice that they wanted to grow and knew that we could do more to broaden our reach. And really help start to lay the foundations for what a strategy might look like and what our areas of focus might be. And then when I started in the role, I was able to kind of build on that work that they started. And then through the listening sessions and beyond, turn that into the results that we have today with the strategy. And I think, again, like I said earlier as well, it really comes back to, living in service of our mission and our vision. And like I said, we're doing a great job. But if we truly want to ensure that no one affected by OCD or everyone affected by OCD has access to immediate treatment, we have to do more.
Definitely. I completely agree. Also talking, I know you mentioned a little bit earlier that one of the focuses of Vision 2030 is on families and kids and things like that. And I have no doubt that the IOCDF will still remain an amazing like support system for all individuals with OCD. But how specifically are you going to allocate like new resources to like the family and I guess kid aspect of things?
Yeah, that's also a great question. So we're in the process now in this first year of making sure that we've got the right resources focused on where we want it, how we want to get started. So we are in the process now of adding a position that's going to help the our program team to have a little more bandwidth so that we have one or two staff people focused more on developing these programs. Also, we have, like I mentioned earlier, a really broad host of people with lived experience, parents, clinicians, researchers who are very passionate specifically about kids and pediatrics and assisting families. And we're in the process of thinking out how can we get their input and get their ideas and help shape programs and really understand how we can have the most meaningful resources for people. And in terms of like, I can't break it down by dollars exactly, like how much resources we'll put towards it, but it's going to be one of those three major strategic focus areas in addition to public policy and partnerships.
That's awesome. So,
Mhm.
kind of piggybacking off that idea, how does this initiative help like teachers and school personnel like support children with OCD? Because I know it can, from firsthand experience, it can affect every aspect of your life, including school and things like that.
Yeah, well, again, I encourage folks to check out the Anxiety in the Classroom website and toolkit that we have. And again, if you're compelled, please share that with school professionals that you know. I like to share my sister is an elementary school principal, and I've been talking to her about anxiety in the classroom, and she's so excited to learn about this resource. And what my understanding is that there's such a hunger from teachers and other school professionals who just do not have the resources and support to help a lot of young people who are struggling with lots of different mental health disorders, including OCD. And they're really almost desperate for accurate, helpful information that they can use in their practice while they're teaching kids. So, and I think some of the ways we can do that is we help, guide them to understand signs and symptoms, help have prompts for ways to seek resources for kids, and then provide other supports that they can also share with kids or with families.
That's awesome. I'm very, very excited to hear that. And yeah, something else that I really wanted to kind of speak about a little bit is that I feel like while the IOCDF has such clear goals for like Vision 2030, I think that the community can also help so much with achieving those goals, and especially with like the awareness portion. So I encourage everybody kind of viewing tonight to be kind of like your own advocates and go out and start talking about evidence-based treatment and what the reality of living with OCD is like, because I feel like that will really help the IOCDF in all of their endeavors. And the more that we all talk about it, the more people will finally kind of start to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had another question about the new kind of like treatment guidelines, things about like that coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, good question too. Yeah, and I think with some of the comments in the chat, this might help address some of the questions that are being asked. So we are in the process of developing, updating our treatment guidelines that exist on our website today, but they're in need of a refresh and updating. And that work has been ongoing for over a year with staff and a number of volunteers on the SCB helping us with that work. And we're very, very close to being finished with that work and hope to have that page launched ideally, within the next, I'll say like 4 to 6 weeks. It's hard to predict because we're relying on folks who have day jobs to help finish up work and get it over the finish line. And I think it's going to be more of a map to understand what are the frontline treatments available, what's recommended, and then what are secondary treatments that are available, and then what are more cutting edge and other things out there.
That's fantastic. I'm super, super excited about that. I guess since we're kind of running a little bit short on time, I can end with one of my other fun questions.
Okay.
So if Vision 2030 had to have like a theme song, an anthem kind of vibe, what would you say it would be?
Yeah, there's so many directions you could go with this question.
I'm so sorry if I stumped you. Let me know if you need
no, it's okay. I think Brave by Sarah Bareilles really comes to mind. Bareilles, sorry. Because I think it's so exciting and it's bold, but it is going to take a lot of courage and thinking about doing things differently on the team at IOCDF and really for our whole community to open up our minds and think differently. So I think Brave might be an appropriate one.
Definitely. Yeah. I think my personal opinion, there's so many good hype songs that I was thinking about. I think the one that most embodies Vision 2030 is by Daft Punk, the Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. I just think
I love that. Yeah.
I just think that encompasses everything. We're doing it more. We're doing stronger. We're just leveling up the IOCDF and research in every single way. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that's great, and I love that other people are sharing what they think their anthem would be in the comments. So thanks for that. That's great.
Definitely. And it looks like we have a question from Valerie. I'm not sure if you want to answer this one.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Val. It's great to have you on. Thank you so much for highlighting this. Yeah, I would say, like I was saying earlier, the work that we're doing really focuses on our entire community, and that, of course, is inclusive of people over the age of 50. And I think we've got a lot of resources focused on that group. And also the work that we want to do to build more community and more opportunities for people to connect. I think could really lend itself to build on some of the great work that you've been doing in your advocacy work with Vintage Voices and beyond to really start to build more community around that for older adults who are interested in talking about that.
Awesome. And then since you were talking a little bit about the OCD conference, which I'm sure we're all super, super excited for, does Vision 2030 kind of set any new instructions for those, or will those be affected in any way? I also know you guys mentioned the hybrid, the addition of the hybrid track, which was super interesting. And I really appreciate that the IOCDF is taking a lot more steps to make everything more accessible to different people.
Yeah, so I think offering the multiple hybrid tracks is probably the biggest change. And again, that's really, we're starting to build our capabilities on reaching people more internationally and also helping people who just might not be able to travel to a conference every year. We're also going to have some new offerings on the Thursday for clinicians. And so there'll be a little more programming for clinicians that I think has been in very high demand that we're also excited about. And so I'll say this, though. I don't think anything about the strategy is going to change, who we are, our community. I attended my first conference last summer, obviously, and I was just completely blown away by the warmth and the excitement and then the energy of all the people there. And that really is at the heart of what we do. It's such a special community. We bring together people with lived experience, clinicians, researchers, and I don't know a lot of other organizations that do that and do it so well. So I always say kind of more internally, I want to preserve and figure out the way to keep that secret sauce that makes us so special. And we want to grow that and just share that with more and more people.
Awesome. That's so great. And I guess like with you mentioning that definitely makes me think, I guess my mind is like now stuck in the thinking of songs and analyzing that kind of vibe. I think something that kind of embodies the IOCDF as a whole is We Are Family. I know my mom.
Oh, love that too. So yes. Yes. I love that.
Yeah. I always say the F in IOCDF should stand for a family because we're all like such a good community and it's so rewarding to be a part of it. So yeah.
It's so well put. Well, Kira, I cannot thank you enough for joining tonight. You brought so much energy and fun and really great questions to the conversation. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was such an honor.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone else for joining this evening. It's been a pleasure to start to share a strategic plan. You'll be able to see our plan online on our website. And any questions that are coming in, please do reach out to us, and happy to help address them as they come through. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next live stream. And thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
And everyone get hyped for Vision 2030.
That's right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.